Thank you all. Hello and good morning. Again, my name is Tim Welsky. I'm Associate Dean for Enrollment and Student Services here at the Divinity School. But my primary role this morning is just to introduce our wonderful dean, so I'll get right to that. David Hempton was appointed Dean of Harvard Divinity School in July 2012 after joining the Faculty of Divinity in the spring 2007. So he's just celebrated his 10-year anniversary at the Divinity School, as have I. And I think we both got coffee makers for that, right? That was our recognition for anniversary. Before coming to HDS, he was university professor and professor of the history of Christianity at Boston University. And prior to that appointment, he was professor of modern history and director of the School of History in Queen's University, Belfast. In 2008, he was awarded as our Outstanding Teacher of the Year. He's a social historian of religion with particular expertise in the populist traditions of evangelicalism in Europe, North America, and beyond, and is a fellow of the Royal Historical Society. He received his BA at Queen's University, Belfast, and his PhD at the University of St. Andrews. Whether traveling to campaign for the future resources of our school or attending events and evening lectures here in the Sperry Room, Dean Hempton is always present, always listening, and always advocating for HDS to live up to its highest aspirations and possibilities. So I'm very pleased to welcome you this morning and to introduce and to call up our Dean, David Hempton. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. The coffee maker, by the way, was a disaster. It was so complicated, I couldn't even read the instruction book. I have not had a single cup of coffee from that coffee maker. Anyway, so welcome everyone. Thanks for coming to visit us on this beautiful fall day with temperature well into the 60s. It really is. You just got up too early. And welcome to everyone who's watching this on live stream as well. So I'm David Hempton, Dean of the Divinity School, and thank you for your interest in coming here and for making the effort to visit with us. We really are glad to see you. I encourage you to make, as Tim has said, to make the best possible use of the time you have with us today. There are panel presentations and conversations with faculty, staff, and students. And these are great resources to get to know our school and its programs to see if it is really a good fit for you. You'll hear from the faculty about degree programs and from students and administrators about student life and the services available at HDS to support our students. And you'll have the opportunity to meet with faculty over lunch and to pose some of your questions more directly, both over lunch and later this afternoon as well. So this afternoon you'll be able to visit the Center for the Study of World Religions across the street, which is a most valuable resource for scholars to live, study, and work together. And you can visit classes, learn about ministry preparation at HDS, and our Director of Admissions and Financial Aid will speak about application processes and the pots of money available to help you along your way. Small pots of money. So I'd like to highlight, in this brief time I have with you, some of the reasons why I believe HDS is a unique and special place, and perhaps help answer your question of why Harvard and why Harvard Divinity School as a place for you to spend some of your time. So here are 8 reasons why you might want to consider joining us. Each one of these will take an hour, but we'll break. So you'll definitely be out of here by 6. So the first is, why not? And that's the end. You'll never hear a better pitch than that. So why not? HDS is a great school in a great university in a great city. 2 great cities, actually, if you take away the river, or if you include the river. And each of those ends is important, I think. It is a great school, but it's a great school, I think, because it's in a great university. And it is partly a great university because it's in a great city. So these things do really reinforce each other. Situating the study of religion in the context of a great university increasingly matters, in my view, because only there, I think, can we begin to get to the bottom of the big religion and questions, as I call them. And I'll say a bit more about that later. So we have a clear mission here, which is to educate scholars of religion for intellectual leadership, professional service, and ministry. Our aim is to create a divinity school in which scholars and professionals from around the globe research and teach religion from around the globe in service of a just world at peace across religious and cultural divides. Our motto is to illuminate, to engage, and to serve. And we know that our students and our alums are committed to those values. So that is the first reason. The second, I think, is that this is an important, maybe exceptionally important moment in our national and global affairs to be thinking creatively about the great issues of our time: religion and political culture, religion and new technology, religion, conflict, and peace building, climate change, international refugee crisis, racial justice and the multiple discriminations that we see too often, the future of our democratic institutions, ethics and public life, and so on. So this is perhaps a really important moment for entering classes to universities right across our country and the world. It reminded me a little bit. I went up to university as an undergraduate to Queen's University Belfast in 1970. It was just the beginning of the Troubles in Northern Ireland. And over the course of my 4 years as an undergraduate, well over 1,000 people were killed in Northern Ireland in a very small province of just 1.5 million people. And of course that went on for 30 years actually before the peace agreement was signed in 1998. At the time, I felt that that I'd made a mistake to go to that university at a time of, as a typical 18-year-old, I'd hoped to go to university to have some fun, to play some sport, listen to some music, visit the library every now and again. And this wasn't that kind of place. It was a serious and dangerous place. As I look back on that from a great distance forward, although that they were tough years, they were also the most formative years of my life in terms of having to engage serious matters, which were urgent, not just on book pages, but all around. And I think I've taken that with me a little bit, that these things matter, that you need to care about them. And so I think we're at a similar kind of moment in both our national and global affairs, that it's a moment when things really matter, and preparing for leadership in that world makes a difference. And people who want to make a difference will make a difference, and we really need it. So that's my second reason. The third is that Harvard is America's oldest university and one of the great universities in the world. It is an extraordinary place to be. The Divinity School not only has its own rich history and traditions, but we're situated in a university city of 10 schools and a major research institute. There's always something amazing going on here, and someone of real importance visiting here. We're also members of the Boston Theological Institute, which opens up another feast of opportunities for courses and conversations in some of our neighboring schools like BU or BC. So we are very much part of President Faust's One Harvard vision and are busily developing connections with other parts of Harvard through new chairs and through cross-registration and through students taking courses there. And our alums, as I travel the country, often pay tribute to the scale of opportunity that Harvard opens up, not just at the Divinity School, but beyond the Divinity School, in wider Harvard and in greater Boston. So it's a place with extraordinary opportunities for courses, for expertise, that I think is really unparalleled. Fourth, and like onto it, you will have access to one of the world's great library systems, over 70 libraries at Harvard and around 20 million volumes. Not read them all before breakfast, which is a remarkable resource for teachers and students alike. I certainly feel as a scholar being at this university that the library resources are really phenomenal, and having spent quite a lot of my academic career in different places, I really value that increasingly as a resource for books, papers, articles, just finding out more about lots and lots of things. So it's one of the great treasures of Harvard. It is the best university library system in the world. Come and take advantage of it, and even today, take a library tour and get to find your way around it. Fifth, you will come to an already diverse and eclectic place, possibly the most diverse divinity school in the United States. And we would love it to be even more diverse. So come and add to that diversity and make your mark here at HDS. This is a moment when those values of diversity, inclusion, and belonging are really under serious threat in many, many parts of our nation and world. And this is a place that we want to be exemplary in standing up for those values. So you will be coming to a place that takes religious pluralism seriously in a world that seriously needs it. We're in the fortunate position to have at least 3 distinguished faculty members with expertise in 5 of the world's great religious traditions, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Judaism. But we also have scholars working on indigenous religious traditions in Latin America, Mesoamerican traditions, Cuba, Australia, West Africa. So there's a tremendous range of expertise and diversity here among the faculty. America's world famous religious pluralism project was started at Harvard under the leadership of my colleague Dana Eck, and has just celebrated its 25th anniversary with a remarkable conference here at HDS earlier this year. Sixth, you will come to a place with a distinguished faculty who are at the forefront of their subjects and disciplines. We're expanding our faculty in important areas. So we've recently tenured 6 new faculty members and have 2 searches currently going on. One that's well underway on religion, conflict, and peace building, and another soon underway in religion, business ethics, and the economic order. And every year we also have exciting visiting professors from all over the United States and the world who come and help us do the research here and teach. Each year we have 5 associate researchers in the Women's Studies and Religious program who also offer courses here. So it's really an unparalleled opportunity to take courses in what has been a really path-breaking program in women's studies and religion. And we bring visiting professors here or professor of the practice professors. Over the last year, Cornel West has returned to Harvard, which has been a tremendous addition for us. E.J. Dionne, the Washington Post journalist and distinguished political commentator, is with us right now. And Terry Tempest Williams, the wonderful writer on spirituality and ecology and defender of Native people's rights in this country, which are really seriously under attack right now by some aspect of this administration. So there's always a throughput of really distinguished, interesting people who can help us think better about some of the big problems that I mentioned earlier. Seventh, we endeavor to be a school that speaks to important issues about the role of religion in the United States and the wider world. I call these zip lines from the ivory tower. And we've started a number of initiatives to help us do that better. We have a Religions and Practice of Peace initiative, which has now been going for 3 or 4 years and is really thriving here at the Divinity School. We have a religious literacy program, which has helped us put on large-scale courses, MOOCs, massive online courses, which is partnering right now with BU to put on a set of conferences on religion and the professions. And one coming up in December will be on religion, government, and immigration, which is obviously a key topic. We have a science, religion, and culture initiative as well. So, and one on palliative care and end-of-life issues in partnership with the medical school. So we're always trying to, I think, reach out on that. We see ourselves as a little bit of the center of a crossroads at Harvard where many different issues get talked about. This semester alone, we had Divinity Dialogues on what happened at Charlottesville with many of our alums down there. A conference on Christianity and incarceration, which is one of the most troubling topics of our time, with something like 350,000 people in prison in 1970 and now 2.2 million, the heaviest incarceration rate in the world by a distance. And of course, it's disproportionately weighted, as you well know, in discriminatory ways to people of color in this country. We had a session on the prosperity gospel in the age of Donald Trump, a human rights case in El Salvador on a mass murder that was perpetrated there in 1981. We've had an evening on the Bears Ears controversy. You know, this stretch of land that was designated a national monument in the Obama administration. It's a sacred site for Native peoples, and which looks as if that's going to be revoked by this administration. And there are serious issues at stake there. And just this week, we will have our Lentz lecture by E.J. Dion, and many other things as well. So there's a great deal of stuff going on. We have regular book talks from our faculty of just published books. I did one myself last week on comparative secularization in the North Atlantic world, Western Europe and the United States, and how that's playing out in front of our eyes. So there's always matters of interest happening. So eighth and finally, whatever the program you choose, we have a good record of placing our students, whether in field ed programs in the United States and beyond, or in the top doctoral programs, or in full-time employment. And we do have a vigorous alum network. Check out videos online, over 100 now, in which former alums talk about their time at HDS, their career paths and decisions, which sometimes led them towards unforeseen and wonderful directions. One of the joys of being dean is I do get to travel around not just the United States, but in different parts of the world, and do meet alums who come up with a clear objective for their time here, and something happened to them, some course, some mentoring, some investigation, some research paper, some networking connection, some event that really took them off in a new direction, which has proved to be tremendously life-fulfilling for them. And that happens so often that it's not just an accident. I think that it's built into the DNA of our school, that those opportunities are available to people and they take advantage of them. So those are 8 reasons to perhaps make you think about whether this might be a good place for you to spend 2 or 3 years of your life at an important juncture. So I just want to thank you for considering us. Thank you for visiting, taking the time to come and scope it out. And I hope you really enjoy your days with us. And I'll see you later over lunch, and hopefully around later in the afternoon and early evening as well. So I think I've got time for a few questions. Do we have time for a few questions? Okay, great. So this is normally a moment when people fall silent, but there's really no need to. We're all questions are welcome, except ones I can't answer.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So my question for you as a dean and the head of this institution is, how do you envision the Divinity School in 10 years?
Oh, that's a great question. Wow. I've just been reading this morning a Harvard Business School case that asks that very question. If you're head of an organization, what's your 10-year aspiration? So if I was a dreamer and I had all power, and I'd say two preparatory things. I mean, one is that I do think that we're headed in the right direction for our school. I mean, I think our mission is clear and well set. As a school with special strengths in the world's great religious traditions, which really started with the formation of the building of the Center for the Study of World Religions across the street, which you can visit later. It was about 55 years ago now. So that kind of set a direction for our school, which makes us diverse and international. So we've got a higher proportion of courses that bear on international areas than other schools at Harvard and most other divinity schools in the United States. So we see ourselves as a school that came out of a Boston, then New England, then United States, but increasingly global. And one newspaper, Guardian ranking of world universities by areas, Harvard did come out first on religion and divinity and theology in that survey. So we see ourselves as an institution with a growing voice in the United States and around the world. So in 10 years' time, I hope we've made even more strides to that. I've certainly wanted it to build the school much more strongly, even than it is, into one Harvard, so that chairs in religion and business ethics to make connections with the business school, or chairs in religion, conflict and peace building and the program of negotiation in the law school, or thinking about issues of palliative care and the end-of-life issues and medical issues and so on. So I'd love to see that continue, those big religion and questions. If I was a dreamer, I would love to see our campus, which is, I think, a beautiful campus, but one which I would love to see modernized in some ways, this beautiful building, Andover Hall, which is now 100 years old. And I'd love to see better convening spaces. I'd love to see better relaxation and discussion spaces where students can, Rock Cafe is a great venue and we've got lots of green spaces around us. But I would certainly like to see that. But overall, my vision is that we are living in a world where the Pew survey on what religion is going to look like in 2050 in the world. And what we know is that the two or three big takeaway messages from that is that across the West, the nones will grow strongly. That is the non-affiliated, probably to around 25 to 30% of the population. In the rest of the world, Christianity and Islam will be the fastest growing religious traditions. 4 out of every 10 Christians in the world in 2050 will be an African. And there will be parts of the world where religious tensions will be part of what's going on, especially around competition for resources and climate change. It's going to be a vital time, I think, in the world order for religion, whether it's going to be a force for good or a force for not good. And this is an institution which believes that we need to think hard about those issues and address them, looking forward to what the world's going to look like in 10, 20, 30 years' time. So we have an eye on those future trends and trying to prepare ourselves thoughtfully for them. Is that an answer? Yeah, great, thanks. Any other? Hi.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alexis, and I'm part of the DivEx.
I didn't quite get your name again.
Alexis.
Alexis, yeah.
I have 2 questions, one of which is, how did you first become interested in religion? And the second one is, how did you keep your faith, even if it was just faith in humanity during the Civil War?
The Civil War in Ireland, did you mean? Yeah, Um, um, I was just checking my age for a moment. So how did I first become interested in religion is a great question, I think. There's probably many ways into that. I mean, part of a personal story is just growing up in a household where my mother was and this would be true of many households, I think, where there's been a tremendous influence of faith from, especially from faithful mothers who looked after us. The truth of the matter is I really got interested when I went up to Queen's as an undergraduate, because religion was just in the atmosphere of Queen's. It was kind of almost intravenously injected. You know, it was just religion and political culture, which is what interested me at first, was just a big subject. How did this unit, Northern Ireland, descend so quickly into chaos? Its government collapsed. There was a heavy amount of confessional cleansing, you know, as Protestants and Catholics burnt each other out of neighborhoods and so on. So I really got interested in how that happened. You know, what was, it seemed such a normal place in 1967, 68, such an abnormal place by 1970, and I kind of got interested in how to think about that. So I actually did my PhD on religion and political culture, and I chose just a religious movement, the Methodists, which were to begin working on that. And there were some really important books that come out in that area when I was an undergraduate and doctoral student. So I really just got interested in how religion intersects with political culture. I've always been interested in that. I mean, even in the last election, you know, what is the religious breakdown of the voters in the 2016 election? And I've always been interested in traditions of populist evangelicalism, which were strong in Ireland and strong in other parts as well. And those interests have kept going. I mean, I'm really interested in why, for example, 4 out of 5 self-designated white evangelicals voted for Donald Trump in the last election. I think that's a very interesting question to think about, especially if you look at the roots of that tradition, which was really in persecuted religious communities, often victims of confessional cleansing in early 18th century Europe. And so how you get from that, you know, radical, sometimes persecuted minorities with strong records on anti-slavery and so on into this, you know, what are the cultural processes that make that happen, have always been really interesting to me. How to keep faith, and you know, and what really struck me in Northern Ireland, as bad though it was, there were extraordinary people who, whether motivated by religious faith or by humanistic concerns, just did professional jobs week in, week out, and kept the society afloat. Doctors, social workers, business people, teachers, educators, who, and there are remarkable stories. My wife was a social worker in Belfast for 25 years, and we got to see some of these stories, you know, close up. So, so the headlines aren't always the whole of the story in conflict zones. There are remarkable acts of generosity and goodness and so on. So that, and you can choose to look at it either way. I think you can either see, well, you know, religion was a player in this conflict, even though there were other players in the conflict as well. Or you can see that, you know, people motivated by, you know, faith or by, you know, faith in human potential, you know, stayed tough and made a difference and ultimately won out in the end, even though it's far from a perfect place.
Good morning. My name is Kinga Sering. I'm from the Kingdom of Bhutan, currently at the Divinity School. I'm also interested in the religion and politics And my question, especially for a small country where religion plays a dominant role and has been having the dual system, temporal and spiritual, for the past 4 or 5 centuries. What's your view on whether we really need to be secular to be a democratic country and society?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've just finished writing a book on secularization, actually, but, so I have no idea how to answer your question, actually. Well, my own personal views about that is that there's nothing fundamental in religious traditions that inexorably make them enemies to democratic and human rights issues. There are a variety of structural forces that have maybe made it seem that way. If you were to look, for example, at what happened in the Middle East in the 20th century, from French and British imperialism to deeply cultivated divisions by imperial powers for their own reasons, has happened in India as well. And then mandates of territorial parceling out and deliberately subverting indigenous democratic movements as threats to imperial control and so on. So these have what I've really learned from my studies is that you really need to take a long picture view of how situations got to be the way they are, and to try and avoid explanations based on religious essentialism. As if there's something within a religious tradition itself which always makes it unfriendly to human rights or to emerging natural rights and democratic processes, which is where democratic regimes get their ideologies from, natural rights ideologies, that everyone born has an equal right to dignity and fair treatment. So I think my answer to that would be that what we really need to do is study harder how these situations evolved. I spent a lot of time studying and writing about how my own country got into a situation where a division, and of course I could speak for hours on that, of just how settlement patterns and decisions taken in the 17th and 18th century and economic discriminations and internal colonialisms within the British state and so on produced this sad result by the 1960s and 70s. So what I really learned is there's no glib or easy answers to these things. You really got to think hard, study hard. But I personally don't think that. In fact, my technology wasn't up to it. But there was a YouTube video which someone sent me today by Clay Christensen, who's a professor at the business school, wondering whether democratic regimes can survive without religious foundations of some kind. So, which is positing an opposite case. So I think my direct answer, and I obviously don't know the situation in your country well, would be that serious study and thought, and not always to leap at the first explanation of how societies get to be the way they are.
Good morning, sir. I'm Prashanta Ganguly, coming from India. Yesterday I arrived.
Oh, welcome.
And
you must be jet lagged.
To meet all of you over here. It's very nice to be at Harvard because I had a DNA working, as you say, since 2010 with this institute, though I got no admission over here because of my failures. But unfortunately, this is a fortunate event that I came over to meet all of you. But the burning question is to you, sir. I feel as a human being, and I believe in the religion of humanity, rather than in all sectarian and other divisions. Though I'm from India, there are diverse religious groups, but intolerance is the most important thing happening over there also. It seems to me that how can this Divinity School of Harvard avoid a third world war, which looks to me imminent? I saw it while I was praying to God. I felt it during this 1 month, that we humans, we have to suffer that. As we read in this chapter in the Matthew, chapter 24, in our New Testament Bible, where Lord Jesus Christ said to all his disciples that the end of the age has to come. And when it will come, I cannot tell. The Father is there to tell. But it will be a horrible event where all nations will fight against all nations and everything will end. So can it be avoided with all the government people over there who are at the helm of the affairs? Can Harvard Divinity School help in that?
Well, well, I'd love to be able to say that Harvard Divinity School can save the world. Yeah, maybe that is my answer. Yeah, well, that's a big set of issues for sure. I don't think there's any question that we are facing, moments that are disturbing right around the world order now. I mean, I think we got accustomed, my generation, after the Cuban Missile Crisis, got accustomed to treating nuclear weapons with less seriousness than I think we should have done. I mean, one of the people who got me really interested in the study of history was a person called E.P. Thompson, who was then running the British ban the bomb movement, which he took a leading role in. So we now see that there are now 8 nations in the world with nuclear capacities. We are a generation of people who can engineer our own destruction. We are looking at, I think, a serious process of climate change, which is almost inevitably going to shape global cultures over the next 40, 50, 60 years as demographics put pressure on water resources and fertility and so on. So there's no question there are serious issues here. But as a historian, I've seen, there have been these millennialist or millenarian movements throughout history, people locking themselves in barns and setting themselves on fire and years with 666 on it and so on. So there's all kinds of strange things have happened so I don't give in to apocalypticism that somehow inevitably we're on a kind of track to some kind of catastrophic end. So I do believe in human agency can solve problems. They have in the past. I do think even in our own time, bad though the world order looks like, there's a consensus that we've made real gains in alleviating poverty in vast tracts of the world. Not perfectly, but certainly better than 50 years ago by most indices. So yes, we do want to make a difference. And religion, I've always seen in Northern Ireland and beyond, has the capacity both to ennoble and to disfigure. And we want to be on the former side. But I would say one other thing. It's sometimes assumed that religion is a kind of source of conflict in the world and so on. The facts and figures don't bear that out. There are many things that generate conflict in the world order. I hosted a set of lectures once in Belfast called The Egalitarian Moment, which was a look at how structural programs to promote egalitarianism in cultural revolutions killed millions and millions of people in the 20th century, from Mao's Cultural Revolution through to Stalin's purges, through to neo-violent Marxist regimes in some other parts of the world. So it's not just religion, nationalism, ideology, territorial greed, economic inequalities. There's 1,000 things. So there's no magic solution to these problems. And the Divinity School cannot solve those problems. But we are a place that wants to think seriously about them and to train leaders who can think well about them and to think especially about these big religion and questions. For example, at that Christianity and Incarceration conference, the question was put whether the Judeo-Christian tradition of retributive justice, retribution as a concept of justice, in some ways underlies the ideology behind mass incarceration? And if so, what could be done about that? And I think these are serious questions that need to be answered. So I don't think we can save the world by ourselves. But I think we can think intelligently about these and train leaders who can make a difference. And I am ultimately an optimist. It seems pointless living any other way to me. You know, that the idea that you can make a difference, should make a difference, attempt to make a difference. I mean, these are the people I really admire. You can see it even as people get older, the more engaged optimists, and there's many surveys supporting this, do better in older age because there's still an engagement with the world that's really quite palpable. So not a very clear answer to your question, but it was a big question. Maybe just one more. Do you have time?
I would recommend maybe they meet you at lunch, only because our next panel
Okay,
starts
it's coming.
in 5 minutes.
Oh, right.
But I really encourage you to meet David Hempton at lunch, and can we give him a warm thank you?
Thanks. Thank you.